So what's this? AppEEL in a 5-minute nutshell. And so during my 2016 PhD, I made a once-in-a-lifetime shocking discovery. So yeah. And this will be a narrative nutshell in minutes, and then a scientific synopsis in minutes, where equals 5 and 23. So what's next? Oh yeah, not a lot of people know that the structure of Scientific Revolutions by Thomas Kuhn was in the series called the International Encyclopedia of Unified Science, and that the unity of science will become important later in this presentation. So, we're doing the scientific synopsis first. Tricked you. So the discovery of the unit in the individual sciences is probably well known to you, such as an atom, a molecule, a tectonic plate, a solar system, a cell, a chunk, or an engram, which is like a part of a thing in your head when you're thinking, a bit of information, or a system. But the thing is, these units are all fractal holon partons. See that? See that? And that? And that. So, interesting. Here is 50 quotes on the scientific hard problem of culture on this website. So have a read through those. Let's just have a look here. Let's scroll down on this web page. There's the 50 quotes by 50 different people, more or less, on the hard problem of culture, including Leslie White, the culturologist, who says the discovery of culture may one day rank in importance with in the history of science with the heliocentric theory of Copernicus, or the discovery of the cellular basis of all living forms. Remember how we had the cell before in those discovery of the units? So yeah, feel free to read those 50 questions or quotes on the hard problem of culture, like what is it or how is it structured? One answer is the fractal holon parton. So there's that URL again. And so, as I say, the solution, or one solution, if anyone has any better one, let's hear it. Hear that? That's money in the bank. Consilience, the unity of science, of the sciences, all of them, and the arts. So consilience means the unity of all knowledge. This is in the Ed Wilson, 1998 sense anyway, via a universal set of units, such as fractal holon partons, levels, such as fractal holon partons, because it's about scale, macro, meso, and micro, or large, medium, and small. So the units, the levels, evolutionary mechanisms, such as evolutionary algorithms like selection, variation, transmission, selection and transmission, blind variation and selective retention, Donald Campbell and Karl Popper, and Natalie Gontier, and Dean Keith Simonton, etc. And the I iterates to P formula. Anyway, these are all evolutionary algorithms or evolutionary mechanisms by which change can take place for units of biology or culture, which are fractal holon partons. And fourthly, 3 laws of culture, which is the 3 laws of fractal holon partons. So see the book Consilience, The Unity of Knowledge by Ed Wilson, 1998, for more information. And what this means is the unity of the sciences, social sciences, and the arts and humanities. The 3 have become one. And so here's a video model of the unity of sciences, the unity of the sciences via evolutionary culturology's 4 methods. So these domains are convergent. They blend into one another. This is the vertical integration of the sciences and the arts and humanities, because they're all fractal holon partons. So that's consilience, the unity of science, via vertical integration, including the arts and humanities, via the 3 laws of fractal holon partons, which we'll get to shortly. Next. So Ev-Cult. Yes. What is culture for evolutionary culturology? It's a very good question. In Ev-Cult, it's products, processes, and ideas. Those 3 things, 3 categories. And you can view it as a model like this. So we have products in that category, processes in these 2 categories. So it's mental processes and physical processes. And then we have category 3 of ideas. So this extends Sir Karl Popper's 3 worlds theory from 1978 and 1960 of all times. Basically, you have these 4 categories of culture in Ev-Cult. There's nothing in culture that isn't one of those 4 things. So this is a useful taxonomy for understanding culture or information or knowledge as fractal holon partons. And you can, as a metaphor, you can think of water in the 4 different phase states of plasma, gas, liquid, solid, ice in that case. So Ev-Cult is a new meta-science of the units, levels, and 3 laws of culture, and also the evolutionary mechanisms. That model is called the Fractal Systems Meta-Model of Biocultural Evolutionary Creativity, and it's a model of how cultural evolution works for each domain in culture. So you have domains like the sciences, social sciences, and the arts, but you also have domains in culture like languages, music, cinema, video games, tools, machinery, vehicles, transportation, medicine, etc. There's about 50,000 domains in culture, at least. Anyway, those are the two main models, scientific models, is the three laws of whole partons on the left, and the fractal systems meta-model of domains in culture on the right. And so EvCult is a new meta-science of the units, levels, three laws, and evolutionary mechanisms of all culture and biology. Importantly, because biology already has culture in it, because culture is just information. So EvCult is a meta-science of all existing individual sciences. Again, that's the vertical integration of knowledge there in that diagram or model. So uniting the sciences, social sciences, arts, humanities, and philosophy through vertical integration through one single set of units, levels, laws, and mechanisms. And all domains are evolutionary because they all have evolutionary algorithms operating on them. So they're all united by these things called whole partons as units and levels. And this is a case of convergence, the vertical integration of the sciences and the overlap of each of the sciences. There's a great book by Peter Watson, 2016, called Convergence. So the thing is, whole partons are the structure of both systems and units of culture. So systems and units of culture are usually two different things. There's the three laws. So fractal whole partons do three things at once. They integrate upwards into the larger unit on the scale level above, and so they are a whole and a part at the same time. They're a whole unit, a discrete unit of culture unto themselves, like a letter or a word or a sentence, but they also integrate upwards into a larger unit, such as the domain of language, or specifically a letter, a word, and a sentence might integrate upwards into an article or a book or an uttered phrase. So the three laws of whole partons is they integrate upwards into the larger unit on the scale level above. They compete and cooperate with units on the same scale level or size level. And they control and command the smaller units on the scale or size level below, which are inside them. So when you think of like a matryoshka doll, you know, the old Russian doll, which has more Russian dolls inside, etc. That's sort of a good metaphor, but sort of not too, because the main thing is it's not really a whole parton, this, or structured via the three laws, because it should be a matryoshka doll that's made of little matryoshka dolls, so as if the atoms that make up the doll were matryoshka dolls. So this is kind of a nested multi-level hierarchy, but that's not quite a whole parton, because the whole parton is something that obeys these three laws all at once. Anyway, just a fine point of distinction there. Anyway, moving right along. EvCult is about the fractal whole parton structure, which looks something like that. See how there's wholes and parts at the same time? Or something like that, which goes back to Wilhelm Gottfried Leibniz, 1706. And the three laws, which is integrate upwards, compete and cooperate sideways, control and command downwards. or enable agency and structure downwards if you prefer. That light just fell over. Now it's back, fixed. Anyway, moving on. There's your three laws. 1, 2, 3. Good. Next. So EvCult shows how all units of culture and all units of biology are structured the same way. So on the left there we have biology with ecosystem. Moving down a level of scale you have populations. Moving down you have holobionts, and they're made up of cells. On the right we have culture, so a cultural ecosystem up top, and then for example one domain in culture is language, and within that you have holon-parton units such as sentences. They're made up of words, they're made up of letters, so you can keep going infinitely down and upwards. Anyway, units of culture and biology are structured the same way as fractal holon-partons. And so that's a holon-parton, and so is that, biology and culture. And EvCult also shows how all units of chemistry and all units of physics are also structured as holon-partons. So same thing, they're all holon-partons. Next. So you've got your three laws of fractal holon-partons that are laws of physics, chemistry, systems, information, because systems are made of information, energy and matter. They're laws of biology or life, they're laws of socio-culture, so groups and larger groups, and institutions and organizations and corporations, etc. They're all fractal holon-partons as well. And culture, which is pure ideas, processes and products. Next. So they're all holon-partons. So a human being is a holon-parton because they're a physico, chemico, bio, psycho, socio, anthro, cultural system. They're a holon-parton. You and I are one. So, evolutionary culturology shows how the evolution of organisms, the biosphere, the economy, and all culture are governed by these three physical laws, the three laws of fractal holon-partons, using one standard unit, the holon-parton. So, fractal nested systems all the way up and down, including even a humanimal, such as you or I. So a person is a holon-parton. And this is a little Excel program you can have a play with if you like that kind of thing. It just shows you what a system is and how it works. It's a little Excel system that learns new words, and if it knows the word, it's happy, and if it doesn't know the word, it's sad. But you just press a button and it will absorb a new unit of culture, a new word, and it uses, as the data set, it uses the 100 most frequently used words in the English language. But the system, that little blue bounding box there, the boundary, that algorithm inside that system already knows 50 of the 100 words, so half the time roughly it knows the word and is happy, and roughly half the time it doesn't know the word and is sad. Here's a little video demo. It's called the Systematizer. It's a little free Excel spreadsheet you can download and have a play with if you want to know the details of what systems are and how they work. They're actually very simple. Systems are just something with a boundary, and inside that an algorithm or algorithms and inputs and outputs. And so here's the little demo. So we go over to the Do It button,
And if we press that, the system just processed some information, and we can just keep pressing that button, and it's having outputs over here.
There we go. So that just helps with understanding systems, which are very simple, but systems are whole-on partons. They're structured as fractal whole-on partons, so they obey the three laws of whole-on partons, as do units of culture, which are not always systems. For example, a word is not a system, it's a unit of culture, as is a letter and a sentence in the domain of language. Anyway, moving right along. What is this? Oh, this is a different kind of system. In my 2016 PhD on movie creativity and cultural evolution, the Storyality PhD, I suggested somebody make a artificial writer program, computer algorithm that pitches movie ideas by combining two old movie ideas to get a new idea and then ranking them, or including an artificial critic. So this is a program which is an artificial writer called the Robo-Raconteur, and it too is a system with inputs, an algorithm, and outputs. Here's a demo. So it has a top 20 ROI movie idea generator where it combines two old top 20 return on investment movies to get a new idea for a high ROI movie. And you can see the posters on the right being combined to make a new movie. Anyway, there's a few other sub-programs within that, including an ironic character generator and a transmedia pitch generator, etc. But anyway, there's another example of a very simple system done as an Excel spreadsheet so that you can see the workings of the system quite easily. Next. So, thinking of dual inheritance theory by Boyd and Richardson now. Evolutionary culturology views biology and culture as whole-on partons as two self-coupled systems, so the inputs of one become the outputs of the other, or rather the outputs of one become the inputs of the other. But both biology and culture, of course, are structured as fractal whole-on partons. So, a useful discovery. Biology and culture as two self-coupled systems. Or, for more detail, see dual inheritance theory by Boyd and Richardson. Again, systems science as the basis, or one basis, for EvCult. Next. So, right, what is EvCult? It's a meta-meta science because we know about the individual sciences. We see down the bottom here, maths, fractal geometry, physics, chemistry, astronomy, geology, biology, psychology, sociology, anthropology. And then above that we have what's called the meta sciences, which apply to all of those. So all of those involve systems. So systems science applies to all of those individual sciences. Also cultural evolution, as per Masudi and D.S. Wilson and many others, applies to units of culture. So that's the science of cultural evolution, and creativity science as well. So Dean Keith Simonton, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and Branko, Pritzker, Kaufman, many names in creativity science. They are also meta-sciences, which apply to many domains of the sciences. And information or communication science, as per Claude Shannon, Norbert Wiener, etc., applies across domains, individual sciences. But then above that, we have evolutionary culturology, which unifies all of them with a single standard set of units, levels, evolutionary mechanisms, and 3 laws of culture or information. So down the bottom, these domains, as you can see, are all fractal whole-on partons: biology, psychology, sociology, etc. So we have the individual sciences down the bottom. In the middle we have the meta-sciences, which apply across sciences, and EvCult is a level above, so it's a meta-meta science of all knowledge. And EvCult is a synthesis of 6 meta-sciences, so it comes out of Applied Evolutionary Epistemology. See a great article by Natalie Gontier from 2012, which will be in the comments of this YouTube video. It came out of the Newcastle School of Creativity in Australia. Again, there's a link below in the YouTube description. And evolutionary culturology emerged from those 2 domains, but it combines these 6 meta-sciences, or certain selected aspects of them. So there's more detail in the 5 book chapters that have been published on EvCult, including 2 encyclopedia chapters. Next. So the 5 main tools of EvCult, and again there's more details in the 5 chapters that have been published on EvCult, are these, namely culture as ideas, processes and products, evolutionary algorithms or mechanisms, the fractal systems model as a mechanism of evolution in cultural domains, the 3 laws of fractal whole-on partons, which causes multi-level selection in both biology and culture and physics and chemistry, and whole-on partons as the units and scale levels across all domains. And so on the left we see the vertical integration of knowledge, and on the far left we can see where life emerges, moving upwards in complexity. And so that's a summary of the 5 main tools, although there are about 100 tools in the science of EvCult. Moving on. So examples of units. Say we pick cinema as a domain in culture. So we're thinking of a movie, a 90-minute feature film, say. From the bottom, in terms of fractal whole-on partons, one of the smallest units we have is a pixel in a film, then a still frame of a movie, so basically a photograph. Moving upwards in terms of scales of the whole-on parton, we have what's called a story beat, which is a dramatic unit of culture. Then we have a shot, as in the camera holds on a shot for a number of seconds or minutes in the case of a long shot, in terms of duration. And moving up, shots compose or integrate upwards into scenes in a film. So in a 90-minute feature film you might have 91-minute scenes. Then you have sequences of scenes, such as a chase sequence or a fight sequence or a love sequence or a montage, etc. Then you have acts, so-called acts in films. And then you have one unit of culture, which is the movie, say a 90 or 120-minute feature film. And that integrates upwards into a genre or set of hybrid genres, such as science fiction or romance or adventure, comedy, western, drama, horror, what have you. And that integrates upwards into the domain of cinema as a unit of culture, or the fractal whole-on parton. So each of these units and levels that we see here obey the 3 laws of whole-on partons. So that's a whole-on parton and a unit. That is the next level up in terms of scale. And again, Each of these obey the three laws of whole and partons at once. So that's just one example, and that's what I discovered during my PhD in 2016, the discovery of the fractal structure of culture. This is just one example because I was trying to find the units and levels for studying 40 movies for my PhD study, but it turns out this same structure, I soon discovered, applies to all domains in culture, so it's universal. And for example, let's have a look at another domain in culture because one example never suffices. So if we think of the domain of language, and let's use the example of a book as a unit of culture. So a book is a unit of culture. You can hold it in your hand, and that's one discrete unit of culture. So starting near the bottom, we have parts of a letter, because letters are made up of individual parts. So if you think of the letter T, it's usually a downward stroke and a bar across, but depending on the font, it can get a bit more fancy with serif and sans serif, etc. So anyway, we have parts of letters because they're a whole but apart at the same time. So a stroke in the letter T is one part, and the crossbar is another part, but they are also wholes at the same time. So they're fractal whole and partons. Moving up, they integrate upwards into letters on the scale level above, or symbols or glyphs as you can call them. Letters integrate upwards into words. Words integrate upwards into sentences. I'm skipping some levels for brevity's sake, but if you read the 5 existing chapters on EvCult, there's much more detail involved. So sentences integrate upwards into paragraphs. Interestingly, there's no standard length for a paragraph. Paragraphs integrate upwards in a book into a section in a chapter, and chapters integrate upwards into parts. So you might have a 3-part book or a book in 2 parts, and each part is made up of chapters, etc. And they integrate upwards into a book, and that integrates upwards into the domain of all books, or at the same time, the domain of language. So those are all individual discrete units and levels of culture identified as fractal whole and partons. So that's just 2 domains in culture that we looked at, cinema and the domain of books. But this applies to every domain in culture. So, fractal whole and partons. Each of these on that scale level obeys the 3 laws of whole and partons all at once. It integrates upwards into the larger unit on the level above. It competes and cooperates with units on the same scale level, and it commands and controls the unit on the level below. Moving right along. So the domain of language and the domain of books are both fractal whole and partons, and they intersect or overlap because books contain language. Now, so here's a quick experiment you can try at home right now. How many units in that sentence of the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog? Well, according to EvCult, there's 1 sentence, so that's 1 whole and parton. There are 9 words as units, and 35 letters, not counting the full stop and the spaces. And so that's a total of 45 units. So these things are fractal whole and partons, obeying those 3 laws all at once. Amazing. Now, how many units in this sentence? Well, that's a bit harder because see this one here, that's 1 unit. holon parton, but it's made up of 3 units, the word holon, the slash, and the word parton. So these are how things integrate and combine together to form larger units on a scale level above. Interesting. Anyway, there we have that. And so thinking of combining holons and partons, holons come from Arthur Koestler in the domain of the arts, partons come from Richard Feynman in the domain of quantum physics, because this system applies all the way up from quantum physics through large physics, large objects physics, to chemistry, biology, psychology, sociology, culturology. So a universal algorithm for creativity in both biology and culture is combine 2 or more old units to get a new unit, and that resulting new unit performs better than the competition. That's one algorithm for creativity. It works the same way with organisms as units of culture. As for a definition of creativity, Evcult prefers the tripartite definition. So a creative unit is a unit of culture, which is an idea or a process or a product, that is judged as new or original, useful or effective or adaptive, or solves a problem, achieves a goal, and surprising or non-obvious by the field, who are the producers and consumers for a domain in culture, such as music or science or language or the arts, inventions, transport, education, etc. So that is the 3-part definition of a creative artifact. It has to be new, useful, and surprising all at once. One citation for this 3-part definition is D.K. Simonton from 2012 there. Excellent article noting that the US Patent Office uses those 3 criteria, so should everybody else, probably. Seems quite obvious in a way. Moving right along. The thing is, the holon parton structure of culture applies to stories or narratives as well. So, because stories are obviously units of culture, often made up of language. So, naremes, they're called, these units of narrative. They too are fractal holon partons, it turns out. And so, Evcult applies to all domains in culture, not just stories, with these units, levels, evolutionary mechanisms, and the 3 laws of holon partons. So it applies to many domains, in fact all domains of culture: stories, myths, television, video games, photographs, paintings, songs, plays, poems, jokes, science, history, the arts, economics, conspiracy theories, philosophy, ideologies, religions, politics, and values, etc. They are all fractal holon partons. So here comes the symbol. Each one of those is a fractal holon parton. And as it happens, our physical universe, or the cosmos, is a fractal holon parton. So let's go through the levels real quick. Quarks, they integrate upwards into protons or neutrons or electrons. They integrate upwards into an atom. They integrate upwards into a molecule, which is a fractal holon parton. They integrate into organelles, which are parts of cells, like a Golgi apparatus or a mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. And organelles integrate upwards into cells. Cells integrate upwards into tissues on the level above. They integrate into organs, up into organ systems. We have about 20 organ systems in our body. They integrate upwards into an organism, so one single plant, animal, or humanimal. and they integrate upwards into family or kin units. They integrate upwards into, in the old days, tribes, and these days probably neighbourhoods, because people tend to be more settled. They integrate upwards into a suburb of a city or a town. They integrate upwards into cities. The larger unit there is a local municipality or a shire, if you're in Lord of the Rings. They integrate upwards into states, or what are called provinces in some cultures. Those integrate upwards into nations. There are approximately 195 nations of Earth currently, but they should integrate upwards into one global humanity, and there's a suggestion coming for that later in this presentation. But global humanity, or approximately 8 billion people, can be thought of as one whole unit, and humanity can integrate upwards into the whole Earth or the whole biosphere, so all life, plants, animals, and humanity, or humanimals, and viruses and everything else. Earth as a planet or a biosphere integrates upwards into the solar system, which integrates upwards into the galaxy. Milky Way is the name of our current galaxy. Galaxies integrate upwards into galactic superclusters, and they integrate upwards into a larger unit, which is called the universe. But interestingly, if you continue this same theory, the implication is that we integrate into a multiverse, such as perhaps a simulated multiverse. See Nick Bostrom's simulation argument. It makes good sense that we would have a lot of universes so that we could do blind variation and selective retention. So the Earth itself is a fractal whole-on parton. It's a whole and a part at the same time. Whole-on partons, the three laws. There it is again. So imagine, if you will, a simulation of Earth as a game, and imagine, hypothetically, if you had to manage all 195 nations of Earth and keep them cooperating well and keep everyone out of poverty, solve inequality, make sure there were no wars. World peace is always a good idea. War is horrifying. And so think of a game that's an Earth simulator. The reason I bring that up is I was a game designer for 30 years, but also one key aim of EvCult is ethical culture. So this is bringing values into science. So one aim of EvCult is to identify and isolate and quarantine bad units of culture or unethical units of culture. So bad ideas, bad processes, bad products. And for more information on the ethicizer, see that URL there. But having the fractal laws of whole-on partons enables the creation of an ethicizer as a simulator, an Earth simulator, to monitor all activities, ideas, processes and products, and make sure we curtail the unethical ones. So here's a little video demo of the ethicizer, examining all those levels of the whole-on parton, from cells all the way up to the universe, using 3 different ethical systems: deontology, consequentialism and virtue ethics, or using them all at once to make sure we live in an ethical world. Something like China's social credit system, but run by an ethical computer rather than a flawed human. So the ethicizer considers all units and levels of the whole on parton at once on Earth, using those three laws to make sure there's cooperation and not so much brutal, ruthless competition. So that's the ethicizer, which is one potential output of EvCult. Just thinking about complexity and the size or scale levels of the whole on parton, one way to think about agency and structure for each of these units and levels is using a metaphor of board game complexity. So lower levels, you might have the sort of complexity of a tic-tac-toe game, or noughts and crosses as they also call it. Higher levels, more like checkers, with slightly more complexity on possible moves and laws, or agency and structure. Moving up, maybe being a person is more like a chess game where you are one of the pieces, a pawn or a knight or king, queen, etc. And interestingly though, once we get to other higher levels, the things that a universe can do are more limited in terms of agency and structure, so the complexity comes about through the complexity of biological systems and psychological systems and cultural systems. So anyway, just one way to think of the changing levels of agency and structure on each scale level. And it's most obvious in the shift from quantum physics to large body physics, where the rules change. Anyway, that's one way to think about increasing complexity on these scales and levels of the whole on parton. And interestingly, this suggests Bostrom's right that we're probably living in a computer sim, because everything can be reduced to mathematics using such a system of standard units and levels such as whole on partons. And for more information on all this, or an online summary, there's that URL there, Storyality post 173 on EvCult and information science, communication science and system science, if you want to read more. And here's 5 past publications on EvCult. This was the book chapter in Creative Technologies for Multidisciplinary Applications, which was an appendix to my 2016 PhD. That was reprinted in the Encyclopedia of Information Science and Technology the following year, and the following year in Technology Adoption and Social Issues, the following year in Advanced Methodologies and Technologies in Artificial Intelligence, Computer Simulation and HCI, Human-Computer Interaction, and the following year in the Encyclopedia of Creativity, 3rd edition. So any or all of those chapters are possibly worth reading, including those 2 encyclopedia articles there. So that, in a nutshell, is the end of the scientific synopsis of EvCult. Moving to the narrative nutshell, discovering the structure of culture. So, chapter 1, scale; 2, communication; 3, fractals, Glick and Dawkins; 4, creative industries; 5, the PhD, the end. What do you think of that story? Oh, you need more information. Okay. Scale, I was always interested in scale since I was a kid. I saw in the great books of the Western world, inside Natural Science Volume 8 in Gateway to the Great Books, there is a summary of Keyes-Boak's The Universe in 40 Steps. So this uses fractal zooming to look at things on the scale of atoms to people to solar systems and universes. So I was always interested in scale. Then I did a communication PhD. Sorry, a communication BA in the early 90s. Started thinking about Shannon's communication theory, and that year, 1992, I read James Glick's book on chaos, making a new science. I read Dawkins' Selfish Gene, and I watched a documentary on fractals and started thinking about units of culture as fractal whole partons. Then I worked in the creative industries for 20 years, so writing novels, songs, plays, books on feature film writing, short stories, designing video games and writing video games, writing films and television, and pretty much making any kind of unit of culture that I could and getting paid for it. Then after about 20 years in the creative industries, I came back to academia and did a PhD, and that's when this was all published and formalized, mainly in 2016. And that's what those 5 book chapters are about. And there's a larger book on the way on all this, Evcult. And there's the Storyality PhD, out of which this came, because I was looking at films and analysing different units in 40 feature films. And the thing is, a movie or a film contains domains within domains. So there's just some of the domains that make up film. So you've got your writing with screenwriting, your directing, producing, acting, cinematography, editing and visual effects, titles, sound and music, animation. That's not even all of them. There's stunts and hair and makeup and production design and props and all sorts of things, really. So cinema is a complex domain. Games is even more complex because it sort of has the domain of cinema within it in full motion video cutscenes. Anyway, a movie contains many cultural domains within it, and also they're all fractal whole partons, each of those domains, as is the domain of cinema or a film. And when you think of it this way, a movie or a film depicts many cultural domains within domains as well, because there's just one still shot from the movie Primer by Shane Carruth, 2004. If you look closely, there are many, many, many domains in culture just in that one still frame. So, for example, the domain of transport with the cars, the domain of architecture, the domain of housing, the domain of writing with the open sign on the right, the domain of trees, therefore the domain of biology, the domain of humans, the domain of the sky, the domain of the horizon and the planet. Anyway, there's a lot of domain. I haven't finished counting them all. There are many more than that. So films are quite complex in terms of fractal whole partons within them. And so, yeah, even a still image in a film, of which there are 50 per second usually, contains a lot of information. And it depicts many domains within domains in any given film, such as there are a list of some domains in culture, and you'll find many of those across a great many feature films, and novels, and poems, and songs, and other domains. So, fractal whole partons as units and levels. There it is again, money in the bank. That's consilience, the unity of science, unity of all knowledge with a universal set of units, levels, evolutionary mechanisms, and 3 laws of culture. So see the book Conciliates by Ed Wilson for more detail, and Unifying the Sciences, Social Sciences, and the Arts and Humanities. And once again, these are all fractal Holon partons: maths, astronomy, geology, physics, chemistry, biology, sociology, anthropology, and the arts and humanities. The unity of knowledge. Anyway, hope that helps and hope you find it fun. You can go around using those 3 laws of Holon partons to identify units of culture. So just look for things that are a whole and a part at the same time and obey those 3 laws all at once, and you should be able to find a standard set of units and levels and 3 laws of culture anywhere you look. Thanks for listening. I've been JT Velikovsky and probably will continue to be. Thank you so much. That was a nutshell of Ev-Cult. Ev-Cult in an minute nutshell. Thank you and good night. Oh, there's the website if you'd like to keep up to date. Thank you. Bye for now.